All right, so realistically, Mr. Beast does this. All right. All right, so there's no way he's literally gonna do this. That'd be insane. Like, there's no way he's gonna do this. So instead, it's gonna take somebody with 0 official releases, 0 professional game dev experience, 0 art skill, 1 year out of just learning game dev, and assign a tweet from my old college roommate. I'll take it upon myself, the Tony Snell of game dev. It would take everything to put the beautiful beavers aside for 1 month to try to go up against a gorilla. Alright, so originally the plan was to just do this like in a couple weeks, but again, I'm new to the game dev thing, and the whole plan was my old roommate in college publishes games. Shout out Squarespace. Not sponsored, by the way, but still shout out Squarespace. He had tweeted out, who's gonna be the first to make the 100 man versus gorilla game or whatever. And literally like a day before, or not even a day, like a couple hours before I saw this, I was literally thinking to myself, okay, so either Mr. Beast is gonna do this or somebody's gonna do this in the game. Realistically, Mr. Beast isn't gonna do it, right? That'd be wild. So I hit him up and I said, are you serious? And he said, yeah. So we threw together a little plan, and it was like try to go with the hype kind of thing, which obviously makes sense, right? And the thing is that I'm still new to game dev, right? I don't have that much experience making a game, and especially making a game quick. The only way I could try to feasibly think about doing this as quick as I can was the way I kept seeing people on Twitter do it. Vibe coding. And I never tried this. I only like tried Cursor, like the free version, a little bit. But besides that, I didn't even have it on my PC. I just had it on my laptop. And my whole idea was, I saw this guy Levels.io make his whole playing game on 3JS and using Cursor, and like he like made it very quickly and stuff. I can like try something like that, so then I could like release the game with the hype that's going on. But the thing is, vibe coding isn't for everybody. And when I say that, I mean it takes a certain type of person to like be able to like, I guess it's what they call like a prompt engineer. You really gotta know what you're saying to the AI agent or whatever. Because when I was doing this, oh my god, I was picking fights with the Cursor agent. I was like cursing him off. I was telling him all these things. I felt like I had like an intern, and I was just like attacking him all the time because he wasn't doing what I wanted to do. And it was just like, it was so frustrating. So what like turned into a week of trying to do 3JS, Cursor, and by the way, I forgot to mention, this whole thing was going to be on Discord activities, because there's games that are coming out in Discord activities, and we were going to use this backend service called Playroom Kit that helps you port your games right into the Discord activity feature section. It really helps with multiplayer scalability as well. The whole idea was that people were going to get in these Discord servers, start up an activity, get as many people as you can, and try to beat the gorilla. And on my side, after seeing what was going on Twitter and like people like vibe coding their games or whatever, I was like, okay, I could do this quick, especially with the power of Playroom Kit. This seems like a powerful tool where we could just port the games to Discord and have like a scalable multiplayer backend. But first, I actually had to make the game. And see, I knew the weak point of this game was going to be the 3D modeling. That's my weakest point in game development, especially being a solo developer. And not to bounce around too much, but to bounce around too much. In the Beaver game, there's been a person kind of helping me with the 3D modeling who's actually was creating a new model for the beavers. This person goes by Pumpkin on Twitter, or X, I guess, whatever. Bleh. They saw one of my YouTube videos and decided they want to help me out. So they were helping me at the time, this was late April, they were helping me make a new beaver model. And Pumpkin's work is like super good. If you see them on Twitter, again, X, bleh, their work is really good, and I knew this was the only way I could get the game going in the time span that I wanted to. So I hit Pumpkin up on Discord and I said, hey, how quick do you think you can make me a gorilla model? I explained the situation. I explained that Discord games have to be made like a web game because that's essentially what they are. So the gorilla had to be low poly and optimized for a web game. And then boom, the gorilla came out and it was awesome. I rigged it and I gave some animations and I was almost good to go. But I didn't want to put the gorilla in the game just yet because I was testing with 3JS and Cursor. I decided to just get a model off the internet of just like some random character, give it some basic animations and try to work as just like an AI boss 1v1 against another player. Before I could get the gorilla in the game, I actually also never made a game in Three.js before. That's where like the whole vibe coding came in, where I could try to get the game going as fast as I could, especially not knowing Three.js. I was downloading a lot of assets off the internet, just finding like free models for maps, free models for characters, and just getting used to Three.js. And I felt like in the 7 days that I had given myself, that at least one of those days to be dedicated to like just getting a sample template up of like a player controller and a map. And once I kind of got that going, the next thing I had in mind was try to get Playroom Kit and try to get integrated to the project, and for me to try to get familiar with it. I wanted to learn how its like built-in multiplayer code worked, and especially how the API works and it lets you integrate their games into Discord. But it seemed like the first thing to do was just to make sure it was working into like a web instance. So I just kind of focused on, honestly, I keep saying I focus, but Cursor focus. I kept trying to tell Cursor to, hey, all right, now it's time to add like another player. And I mean, it didn't end up so good. You know, at some point, recording this project got very difficult and very frustrating for me, because a lot of it wasn't even me coding. And I think I will make a vibe coding rant and AI rant on my own, because this first week, spoiler alert, it took me longer than a week. It was so frustrating because I didn't understand anything that was going on in the code. Debugging was horrible. Like, it was adding so much boilerplate, useless template code, and like going through it just felt so frustrating already, like being like 3, 4 days, 5 days in. So, you know, at some point I got the gorilla in there with its animations. I got, you know, a different character in there with its animations, and it felt like I was kind of getting somewhere, but I didn't know how I was getting there. And it was so like, I don't know, it felt like I had, just like this intern just working on this project, and I kept like telling it what to do and what to do. And at some point I was just like, okay, I don't know if I could do this anymore, because I'm kind of getting nowhere. And then to get this like production level, there's no way I'm gonna be able to do this in a week. So at some point I message my homie and I tell him like, hey, Three.js sucks, and like vibe coding kind of sucks, and like me just kind of trying to hint at like, I don't want to do this anymore, or at least not in Three.js, and not try vibe coding it anymore. And at this point it had already been like 6-7 days. So he hits me with a crazy question. Honestly, something I didn't even think about. I don't even know why. But he hits me with, why didn't you use Godot? When I read this question, I don't even know how to explain the feeling. I just felt so dumb. I was just like, why didn't I use Godot? I've never used Three.js in my life. And like, I just chose Three.js because of what I saw on Twitter, people vibe coding with it. And I was like, okay, that'd be cool. Like, it seems like it does that pretty good. But I learned game dev first on Godot. And at this point, a year ago, that's what I started at. So it kind of seemed fitting in a weird, destined kind of way that a year later that I was gonna go crawling back to Godot, asking for forgiveness, and trying to make a multiplayer game. Because that's what I tried to do in the beginning with the Beaver game. But then I switched to Unreal Engine, which I'm still super happy I did. But I still wanted to use Godot for something. I thought Godot was really cool. I really liked using it. I think I was just trying to learn how to do multiplayer, and at the time I just really wanted to go fast, so I just wanted something like straight out the box. But now I realize, even again after this project, that's just not how game development works. Sometimes you gotta take your time, especially if you're really new at it. So the thought of going back Godot made it like a lot more fun. It made it a lot more like, oh man, I'm gonna do this. And then especially since when I use Godot, I like using GDScript in the editor. I don't like using Visual Studio Code or any other like IDE. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna know everything that's going on in the project. It's gonna be cool. I'm gonna finally release a game on Godot, and like it just sparked this motivation again. And I don't know why it took me a week to like, I want to know what's going on in the code base. I want to be able to debug, and it's cool. It's fun, especially when you're doing game dev. I feel like that's the place where debugging is fun, because the glitches and the bugs are always just super wacky. And when you don't know what's going on with it, it makes the bugs just more frustrating than it is make it fun when it's like, oh, well, it didn't work or whatever. So then it starts this whole new arc, which takes, I guess, spoiler alert, it takes 3 weeks, but it's a 3 weeks where low-key I kind of got busy with other stuff, with just life stuff. So the timeline kind of, and then also like I learned Godot a year ago, and then I stopped after a couple months. So I'm still not going to be super fast, but it was, it's Godot, and I really like Godot. I switch engines, and I decide, okay, I want this game to look way better than it did in the Three.js version, and I want to do it as soon as I can. So I already knew, like, it didn't sound crazy to me that maybe in one day the game would already look better than it would in 3JS, just because of the simple fact that Godot is an actual game engine. So I knew I had to make this quick because it had already been a week that I lost technically progress. So I went on Kenny Assets. If you don't know Kenny, go and support him. This guy is making 3D assets, 2D assets, UI, sound, everything for free. And all he asks is for a donation. So go ahead and donate to him. I love all his assets. I used it originally a year ago when I was trying to make the Beaver game in Godot, and I knew that it was perfect for this game, especially since it's going to be a web game and a lot of his stuff is low poly. So I got one of his packs and I decided to try to go for like a Coliseum theme. So yeah, I'm still using Playroom Kit for this, even though Godot has its own GD script language, because Playroom Kit is actually compatible with Godot, even though you do technically have to use Godot 3.6 and not the latest release of Godot. So I was using everything from Godot 3.6 that I also have not learned. So, and luckily in Godot 3.6, we still do have the grid map. So I decided to use the grid map to just use the tiles from Kenny Assets to make like a Coliseum looking map. And it's honestly kind of inspired by Planet of the Apes, like the newest one, or it's kind of like a little bit of a gladiator theme. You know, I'm a big monkey fan. I'm a big monkey guy. So I really liked the idea of like, oh, like people are fighting in this Coliseum against this one big gorilla, and you know, they could get like knocked up into the stands, and like the gorilla could go up to the stands and like scare them and stuff. And that was like kind of the idea for the map. So yeah, it took me maybe like a day to like kind of get used to the grid map and all the tiles, and then try to make it optimized because I had add collisions to every single tile and make sure that it didn't take up everybody's RAM, since it was going to be running as a HTML export. So by like the first 2 days, I already had like a whole map going. I had the boss in it, I had the animations baked into it. I realized that I needed like a character that kind of fit the theme of the art style that the gorilla boss was and the art style of Kenny Assets. So I couldn't use some like kind of realistic 3D model. So I kind of went looking around the internet and I found this pack of just like a bunch of like these little tiny characters. So I ended up getting this little soldier character that I just ended up using and rigging in Mixamo, and I just gave him some basic punching and hook animations, like a right hook, or I think a left hook, I forgot. I just gave him like a basic, like, you know, hook animation, hook swing. I didn't want to stack too many attacks onto him and then just have too many features being stacked on stacked, and then eventually I just don't release the game. Because I mean, this is honestly more of a self-reflection of like my first game release and like kind of the progress of it. It's gonna be like more informational than, or more of a reflection more than anything, because that's what these videos kind of are sometimes, just giving updates about what I'm doing, and then more of a reflection for myself. But at this point, it was more about just getting to the finish line and getting this game released, and just because I know a lot of people who are like in like project or like tutorial hell, where they just kind of do things but like they never finish it, or they start a project, they never finish it. So for me, it was about, even if it's simple, even if maybe it's not the most developed game, I had to pass the finish line, especially for the beavers. You know, I'm taking the beavers in sacrifice. I'm not really like working on it too much. So I wanted to not let their sacrifice go in vain. So I got to coding, and it was, what do people say? Like a breath of fresh air, basically. You know, like I was coding in GD script and Playroom Kit. The thing that I was scared about with Godot was I probably know how it works better now after like a year, but before the replication process of multiplayer and using their API and their methods and like the IDE, that's what was like kind of throwing me off the first time around. But this time Playroom Kit does offer a lot of the out of the box like API. You kind of just send like, you're kind of sending like manual packets for like each animation, each state, each position for each player and like the boss. And it's more of like sharing the state of the game and all the character states. So it did make multiplayer a little easier, but sometimes, you know, I would run into bugs and stuff because, you know, I'm still kind of getting re-familiar with GD script and getting familiar with Playroom Kit, and then eventually when I moved on to Discord, getting familiar with that. And that's what kind of took the most like bulk of time, because if it was a single player game, then this game would have been done in like probably a couple days. But it's not. It's a multiplayer game on Discord's in their activity features. So everything kind of gives like an opportunity for a new bug to kind of come around, and honestly for me to discover something new and like figure out like new ways to solve like these different issues. So honestly, that's what kind of took me like the longest. At some point, it took me like 3 weeks, I want to say. I felt comfortable knowing that the finish line was in sight and that it was going to come out, and I gave myself not a deadline, but I gave myself this note that like at some point just release it. You know, no matter what happens, if it's bad and there's a lot of bugs, then, you know, fix the most critical bugs, but at least have it playable, right? But the idea was at least have it be playable and have it be released. So for 3 weeks, I was kind of just grinding away, making sure the game was playable and making sure that, you know, it was at least like somewhat decently fun. So by like the first week of June, I got on a call with my friend and I kind of showed him what I had. Honestly, it didn't go good at all. It didn't go good, and I kind of had the feeling because I kept testing by myself on my laptop and my computer. Occasionally, you know, I would tell my girlfriend to help me, and, you know, it was never like super in-depth testing like how I do for like the Beaver game. So like my biggest fear was that it was gonna, you know, glitch in a realistic situation where somebody's actually trying to beat the gorilla, right? And especially when there's multiple people, and I'm not like kind of like picking at certain scenarios where I know bugs are gonna come up at and like trying to avoid them. So, you know, we got on the call, he starts playing, and like immediately, I don't have footage of it, I should have recorded it, but we were having like a conversation, so I didn't really want to like be in the idea of like, oh, I'm recording this or whatever. So like just basically he was like jumping and the gorilla was like trying to jump up with him, and he got stuck immediately, and then we tried to run it back, and then it just, the lobby wasn't loading, and then I was like, okay, like I was like, yeah, this is chucked. And like he said it too, like after I kind of said it, I was like, I don't think you could publish this. And like, yeah, like he's more established in the scene in the industry where I don't want to tie a shitty game to his name. So I kind of, you know, we talked about it, and I was like, I want to release this game and I want to be done with it because I don't want to take too much time on the other things that I'm doing. So the idea was try to clean up like the little bugs that were kind of happening, because I already kind of knew how to fix it. But yeah, anyways, all the boring stuff out of the way, I decided to release the game, which I thought was going to be easy. But on Discord, when you have to do an activity, if you're releasing it to like the discovery mode where people could find it, you have to have a terms of service and a privacy policy, which I had to write up, which was not as hard as I thought it was gonna be, but you needed to provide it in a link. So then I had to go ahead and make a website, and I had to deploy that website, and I just used Vercel for that. And I put the links for the term of service and the privacy policy, which is easy because it's a free game where I do not take any money, and I also don't take any data because it just uses your name and your profile picture just for displaying in the lobby. So that took like maybe like a day or two to like kind of do. I think it was just like a day. It took like a day or two to do, and eventually it was up. The game was up, and we got a whopping 0 players. Because, I mean, I haven't advertised it at all. I haven't even tweeted about it. I only told like a couple of my friends, and I showed a couple of people, but I never tweeted about it or posted about it, anything socially. And I don't expect a lot of people to play it anyways. I just wanted to have something to say, hey, I finished a game. It's out there. If for some reason people are playing it, or even if I just want to take a break from the Beaver game or anything that I'm doing, then maybe I'll work on it, and it'll always be something that I could come back to and kind of just develop. This video kind of took a while, and I kind of bounced around a lot because it's been like 3 months or 2 months since the last video, and you know, this is kind of what I was working on. I was working on some Beaver stuff, but the day I'm recording this, it's June 18th, and the acceptance for the grant that I applied for the game hasn't been released yet. And honestly, a lot of things are relying and are gonna change depending on the outcome of the grant. So I'll get into it in a different video, probably when I get the decision. But I will be making more videos because I want to talk about the vibe code stuff. I want to talk about what's gonna go on with the Beaver game, and then just like an update on everything. So maybe like 2 or 3 videos that are gonna come out sooner than the kind of like hiatus that I went on. This channel is more of like, you know, when I'm older and I can, you know, look back on the things that I did, you know, I could be happy and I could remember all the times. So, you know, I don't always mind, you know, making these videos a little longer than they should be. But yeah, if you want to check out the game, I forgot I did call it Gorilla VX because the X, you know, is the variable. It doesn't matter how many players play the game. It could be the Gorilla versus 1, the Gorilla versus 2, Gorilla versus 3, you know, etc. I don't know. Okay, actually no, on Discord I put a limit to 8 because it does need a limit. So I mean, I guess I could have put 8, but I think VX sounds cooler, I guess. If you want to try it out, go ahead and try it out. Let me know if you like it, and if not, then that's fine too. And thank you. I hope you like and subscribe, and thank you.